What's going on, people? Here's Shirley Gaming Nation in the building. Going live today. And we got some things to discuss. Give me one moment. Make sure I share out my stuff. Okay, public. Give me one moment. Let me change the thumbnail right quick. Anyway. All right, cool. So we live and set. All right, so begin. So today we want to talk about Black women and the disobedience to Black men and the downfall of Black culture. Um, for a long time, you've always put it at the feet of Black men, and Black men can't lead, and Black men's leadership is ineffective. This, that, the third, wibbity wham wham, and because of that, we're putting at the feet of Black men. We put Black men at the under the microscope, as Angry Man would say. And since I want to say the Black Manosphere started, Black men like the Angry Man, Tommy Sotomayor, and plenty of others, they've taken the charge or trying to take back the narrative of Black men's image. But even though with everybody's critique of Black women and dissecting the psychology of Black women and why they do what they do, and mind you, all of the breakdowns that I listened from Angry Man to Tommy Sotomayor to Mr. Fantastic, and even from my own self and my own life experiences, what I break down today about Black women, you can be like, damn, nobody ever broke it down in that lens or broke it down to that effect or broke it down like that before. So we're gonna do that today. So sit tight, say something to the chat, say what's up into the chat room, put your ones in the chat, like, share, subscribe to the video, and let's go on the ride. Let's go on the journey, right? Let's begin. You know my formula. I like putting my slides up here because the slides help me to paint the picture properly. The psychology of Black culture and the failures of Black women, right? Structure breakdown. Historical and structure foundation. Slavery and the denial of patriarchy, right? So Black men preventing from establishing a patriarchal family model. Now, when you have Black men that were once enslaved by another group of men, and then now slavery ends, Black men now scrambling at the time to, I guess, set up some type of patriarchal structure in the household, which was very difficult during Jim Crow and during Jim Crow and then segregation and all that stuff. Black men at that time was fighting. And then especially during after slavery now, you now have to figure out how do you define your identity as a Black male at that time? Because your identity was being a slave. You're being under the you're under the leadership of somebody else. You're enslaved by somebody else. So now that you broke away from that, you now have to define what your identity is as a black man, right? So let's get to it. Women became transmitters of culture within slave quarters and households. Result, a matrilineal influence, women shaping culture though not formally leading it, right? So matriarchal now would be black women leading the culture. Matrilineal is more of an influence base because they are saying that you're of the mother, right? So now when you go to post-slavery policies, you go to welfare state, LBJ, the 1960s, right? Men in the house rule incentivized female-led homes, punished male presence, mass incarceration, the Clinton era, that's the 1990s. So this is going through the structural policies that took away black men's ability to financially set up a patriarchal in the household. So when liberals or pro-black say systemic or structural issues, they're talking about the policies like the 1994 crime bill or LBJ, or even a lot of the policies that Bill Clinton passed during his era, right? So mass incarceration in the Clinton era, this is the 1990s, disproportionately targeted black men, removing them from households. Then you had the NAFTA. This is the deindustrialization, right? This is taking a lot of those factory jobs, those manufacturing jobs that black men were able to work, and all they needed was a high school diploma to get, right? And they were able to work these manufacturing jobs and provide for their family, and be a provider, play that provider role for their family and stuff, and be more patriarchal. But because of that NAFTA agreement, it took away a lot of those jobs from black men. And it took away a black man's ability to be traditional as far as the provider role in the household, right? DEI and corporate America. Black women elevated as double minorities, outpacing men in white-collar spaces. Structural reality. Policy didn't uplift the black family, they uplifted the woman at men's expense, right? So now so we look at the post-slavery policies, right? From welfare state to mass incarcerations to NAFTA, right? So let me break it down like this. So with the welfare state, that's incentivizing women now to go on Section 8, welfare, and WIC and EBT. And in order to get access to those things, you cannot have a black man present in the household. Those of you who are from East New York, Brooklyn, like myself, or you from the hood, like myself, you know how that situation goes, right? The black woman, the father might be there, or he might be there for the kids, but he has to now have a, like, what they used to have, like a black plastic bag to pack his stuff, and they would time when the people from the welfare office would come visit to do an evaluation of the mother. So then the black men would leave the house I forgot what you used to call them type of people. You used to call them like the white man. He would come to evaluate the house to see if you had a black man that was there. Because remember, you can't have a black man present in that household. If you had a black man present in your household, you lose your benefits from it. So that's the welfare state of LBJ. Then now when you get to mass incarceration with the Clinton era now, that's putting a lot of black men in jail, taking them in jail. And then now when you go, and you know, with the story with that, and everybody knows the story with that, right? You have a lot of black men that have been exonerated since that time, right? Come to find out they really didn't commit the crimes they were accused of. So mass incarceration in the Clinton era took a lot of black men and put them in jail. Then you had NAFTA, right? So you had a lot of black men who were working and were able to provide their household full time, that now they're losing their job, manufacturing jobs, and can't provide for their women. And then you had DEI in corporate America, right? So now black men have to shift and adapt to corporate America. Well, they can't get the jobs in corporate America if DEI is hiring both white women and black women for those positions in corporate America over black men. Because remember, black women are a minority, and they're black, and they're women. So that's a triple benefit for them. So now you have black men competing with white women and his own black women over the same resources, job resources, right? Right. So for example, a lot of black women did What was those jobs called again? Like customer service jobs and stuff, or call center jobs, or whatsoever. They got jobs at the DMV. A lot of jobs that black men were not getting, right? If you look at the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Corporation, I forgot what the last thing says. They documented the patterns or hiring practices of when they would hire black men, right? So black men during this whole timeline, right? Now when you get to DEI, it's now hiring black men and black women or white women over black men. So now, like I said, black men has to compete for the same job resources and opportunities with black women and black women and white women. And remember, during the 90s and the 2000s, black women were getting these jobs and they were throwing it in black men's face to say that we could get these jobs and you can't. And this is why you're a broke, dusty nigga. See what I'm saying? So black women played to the systemic tactics that were being used against black men, and they were benefiting from that and then throwing it into black men's face. This is why when black women talk about being race loyal, bullshit. Because if you were really race loyal, why did you take the opportunities to where you were getting jobs from DEI and throwing it? So Demetrius Anton, stop your yapping. Well, I'm gonna come. You know what? Demetrius, why did you even put your summer banner? Every damn time. One more fucked up comment. I'm gonna just put this on subscriber chat only. Anyway, you notice that Demetrius Anton, you don't see him in black women's chats telling them to stop their yapping when black women are flaming black men for bullshit. You notice that? Anyway, culture choices in psychology. The welfare feminism choice. Black women aligned with government programs and feminist independence over men. This weakened race loyalty. Government support became more dependable than black male leadership. So black women can't talk about being race loyal when you are picking the government programs and feminist ideology over your black male leadership, right? Accountable double standard. Black men condemned for destructive choices, drugs, gangs in the 80s and 90s without systemic excuse. Remember, black men, we did not get that excuse of when we were selling dope in the 80s and 90s, when we were gangbanging in the 80s and 90s of a systemic cause. We're not allowed that excuse, right? Black men, but we were told that, well, you should have known better to not sell dope, and you should have known better not to gangbang, regardless of how broke you were in the 80s and 90s. Remember, this is around the same time that a lot of NAFTA, a lot of manufacturing companies were being outsourced. And in the 80s and 90s, every group of men was selling dope. This is from white men to black men. Everybody was doing it, but black men don't get the excuse of a systemic cause, right? Black women excuse for destructive choices, welfare, dependency, anti-male independence, because of systematic pressures, right? Fairness principle. Either both sides are victims of circumstances or both must be held accountable, right? So black women, they can use the excuse of why they pick welfare dependency or they were anti-male or feminism because of systemic pressures. And they don't get held accountable for why they made those choices. But black men, we get held accountable for our choices, and we don't have to get to use the excuse of a systemic cause, a systemic excuse, right? So this is the fairness principle, black women. Let me put my face on the screen. So to black women, it's either both black men and black women have to be held accountable for our destructive choices during the 80s or 90s, or it's the system's fault. But you can't hold black men accountable to a standard and then you not hold yourself accountable to a standard. It's either we both made fucked up decisions and choices, or it's the system's fault. Which black women don't want to be held accountable for that. Understand? Just get it. Competition over resources. DEI created competition between black men and women for the same resources. Women often weaponize corporate advancement to belittle men. More educated, doing better, right? So this is where black women talking about we're more educated than black men and we're outpacing black men. And this is the reason why we got to date the white man, because the black man is ineffective. All throughout the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and up to current time, that is the anthem that they preach. Meanwhile, men still succeed, black men still succeed in trade, service, industries, but without prestige, right? So black men, even though you're not getting the same corporate opportunities that black women are getting, but you're still shining in what you call construction, trades, being a trash collector. But black women shame those jobs. Black women say they want to date a bus driver, MTA bus driver. You know how much an MTA bus driver makes a year? Black women say they want to date a garbage man. You know how much garbage men make a year? Black women say they want to date a construction worker or trade skill nigga. So they belittle those professions that black men work and say that because black men are not getting a degree or on equal to their level, that they don't qualify for black women to marry those brothers. That's what black women been saying. You look at Ebony K. Williams and all these different black women over the COVID era up until present, that's what they say. Right? What's going on, Sandra? Respect my chat. Right? You will be blocked. Because guess what? I don't go to people's live stream and disrespect them in their chat. It's either I respect their chat or just leave them alone, right? I notice every time I do topics about black women, there's trolls in my chat. But every time a black woman is getting on here live saying disparaging things about black men, you never see trolls in their chat. So that's something to be said, right? So the next part, colorism. Colorism as a cultural transmission, right? So oftentimes black men, we get blamed for dating lighter skinned women or red bones, so for having that preference. But it's really not being dissected of why black men do that. But when black women date a light skinned brother or white man, they don't get put under the microscope of why they do it, right? It's not put as black women hate themselves and hate the children that they produce with other dark-skinned black men. That's why they want to date light-skinned men or white men to produce lighter children. That's not being phrased that way. But when black men do it, we have to get pathologicalized. Or we're hating ourselves or we're colorists. So we're going to dissect that in this slide right here. At home, roots, invisible receipts, right? So these are the invisible receipts that is difficult to prove directly because it's happening in the privacy of the home. The only way you can prove these invisible receipts, right? You have to go on a panel, listen to both black men and black women describe how they were raised in a household. You'll hear so I was on a panel with Tommy Sotomayor I think I was watching the panel. I don't think I was on it. And they were talking you got light-skinned brothers up there, light-skinned sisters up there, dark-skinned brothers on the panel, and dark-skinned sisters on the panel. And they were talking about how they were being raised in their household. And they were talking about how their aunties and their grandmas and their mothers or the women of their family made disparaging jokes about dark-skinned niggas, but praised light-skinned men as pretty boy of good hair. Understand? So, the invisible receipts, right? Grandmothers, mothers, aunties often praise light-skinned kids, insulted dark-skinned kids. These patterns show up consistently in anecdotal experiences across black families. Cultural transmission. Women planted colorism values in the household, right? So that's coming from black women, right? So now, if you see a black man with a light-skinned chick, why do you think that is? Because in his household, his mother and his grandma taught him that dark-skinned people are ugly and bad, but light-skinned people are pretty and good. So now if a dark-skinned brother, who they also used to crack jokes and call him ugly and black as ever, why would he be with another dark-skinned chick that they don't like or dark-skinned woman that they don't like? Why would he not just get him a light-skinned chick and create a light-skinned kid so that black women can praise that light-skinned kid? Nobody, no. So now, mind you, this is not the majority of black men. The majority of black men who are dark-skinned or like my complexion, they date and marry and breed with dark-skinned women, right? But every time when but I guess a small minority of black men date a light-skinned chick, it's never dissected on why he's doing it. It's just phrased as he's a colorist or he's bad. Understand? And if you also notice, when a dark-skinned brother's with a light-skinned chick, he's not the one pointing it out that he's with a light-skinned chick. Usually everybody else is commenting that, man, this dark-skinned nigga, he not with a real chocolate sister. He with a light-skinned chick. He a colorist. He hate himself. Right? These patterns show up consistently in anecdotal experiences. So, public expression, visible receipt. So, hip-hop, right? Hip-hop is where black women like to say, well, see, these black men in hip-hop, they're colorists because they're always featuring light-skinned women in their hip-hop videos. But rappers like Busta Rhymes, DMX, Method Man, Tupac feature dark-skinned women consistently, especially Busta Rhymes. You look at Busta Rhymes' music videos, it's always a dark-skinned sister in his videos. Tupac or DMX or Method Man is always dark-skinned sisters in their damn videos. But those men are never praised or respected for having dark-skinned brothers in the videos. They only point out the black men who have light-skinned women in their video. And then again, if you're raising black men in your household and the grandma and the aunties and the women of their family are down and dark-skinned kids, down and dark-skinned men talking all kind of you're black and ugly, like soot and all kind of ugly and black names, but then you're praising light-skinned kids, why would you think darker-skinned black men won't listen to that, learn their preference and say, you know what, I'm going to get me a light-skinned woman and produce me a mix or a light-skinned looking type of kid? Because if I have a dark-skinned chocolate kid, the dark-skinned black women in my family and in my culture are not going to respect him or elevate him. But that's not being said like that. And dark-skinned black men don't get mad at me. I'm just pointing out, I'm pinpointing the truth, right? Not saying that that's the facts or that's how it goes. I'm just saying, you know, why is that not being explained that way? That maybe that's the reason why dark-skinned black men want to date light-skinned or red bone. And then you got light-skinned red bone black men who date light-skinned red bone black women, but they still complain about those black men who do that, right? The cycle. Women transmit colorism at home. Men internalize it, hip-hop amplifies it, cycle repeats. Root cause equals cultural condition in the household. Hip-hop is a symptom, not the origin. So if you see black men, so for example, if you see black men dating light-skinned women, or if they're in hip-hop and they're putting light-skinned women in their videos, that's not the reason why they're doing it. The hip-hop is not the origin of it, and it's not because they're colorism. They're colorists. It's because their black mamas or their grandmas taught them colorism. They taught them to not like dark-skinned, even himself, if he's a dark-skinned person himself. His women or his mother or his grandma taught him to praise light-skinned women, but do not like dark-skinned men or dark-skinned people. That was what was taught to him by his mother and his grandma. Parenting and generational impact. Men as equal fathers. So now, this is the thing, the difference between this is why fatherhood is needed in black culture, right? Because this is a difference between how black men parent their kids and black women parent their kids. Black men tend to love children equally, regardless of complexion or which mother the child comes from. Father's affection isn't usually tied to colorism. Women as conditional mothers, right? Some black women treat children differently based on complexion or base affection on how much they love the father, right? So if you watch the movie Boys in the Hood, Ricky and Doughboy's mother, right? Doughboy's mother hated Doughboy, but she loved Ricky. And I believe that was based on the fact that she loved Ricky's father more than she loved Doughboy's father. And even though Ricky was light skinned and Doughboy was dark skinned, because the mother liked Ricky's father or had an affection for Ricky's father, she favored Ricky over Doughboy because she made sure she parented Ricky, but she didn't parent Doughboy. And guess what? Even though she was parenting Ricky, Ricky still got somebody pregnant, got a woman pregnant. He had a kid while living with his mother. And remember, Superior Styles, and I forgot Cuba Gooding Jordan's character's name, right? Furious Styles was more protective of Trey having kids out of wedlock or getting a woman pregnant. If you go watch Boys in the Hood, go watch Boys in the Hood. When Trey, his father, didn't want his son Trey to have a kid before he was ready for that. But meanwhile, Ricky still had a kid when he was being parented by his single mother. Go watch the movie, right? Women as conditional mothers. Some Black women treat children differently based on complexion or base affection on how much they love the father. Creates generational trauma. Darker skins absorb rejection, lighter skin absorbs favoritism, right? So that's a two-layered thing of Black women, right? Black women will say all kind of disparaging remarks about their dark-skinned children, but if they have a light-skinned mixed kid, they'll praise and favorite the shit out that light-skinned kid. But the caveat will be, or possibly be, if they like the father or not, it's going to also add on to how well they treat that child. And I think that's not specific to Black women. I think all women do that, but I'm a Black man that date Black women, so I have to dissect what Black women do. And Black women, if you're getting mad at me, I'm saying this for you to correct yourself. You know, like how y'all was saying that Black men are deadbeat dads and Black men solve that problem by stepping up, by being fathers in the home. You know, like how Black women should say Black men are broke and they need to make more money, and Black men stepped their game up and was making more money. Well, Black women, I'm pointing out a flaw in you. So maybe you can fix how you raise children. Right? Core thesis, systematic structures. So now let me go back to something else. So if you notice with Black men who are fathers and they have children, regardless if the child is dark skinned or light skinned, he's going to treat and love those children equally. Right? He's not going to look at his children, you know, the dark skinned kid any different from the light skinned kid. He's going to treat them as they're his, even if he's the stepfather. If you notice that, right? Seem that like when it comes to Black men and parenting, we're more equal and balanced than Black women left to their own devices, right? To raise kids. Core thesis, systematic structure. Elevated Black women over men, undermining Black male patriarchy. Cultural choices. Now, mind you, remember I said earlier, Black men after slavery were trying to create a patriarchal system. Within. It's just that with Jim Crow, segregation, and all that stuff that went on, Black men didn't have that ability to do that properly. And then now you get to feminism, and Black women join in feminism. Then now you get to the 80s and 90s mass incarceration. Then you get to Bill Clinton's NAFTA agreement. All these things prevented Black men from fully engaging in capitalism and creating that patriarchal structure within his community. And Black women choosing outside influences over the Black man's influence, right? And Black women have to be held accountable for that. Cultural choices. While Black women reinforce systematic advantages while blaming men for systematic failures, colorism is proof. Women transmitted it privately in the home. Men projected it publicly in music. Society blames men for the projection, but ignores women's role in the transmission. Right? So this is what happens. Because Black men are public, right? We're upfront, we're more direct. And because Black women are more behind the scenes, you're going to blame Black men more, but you're not looking at Black women and how their they are teaching and raising or cultivating it behind the scenes when they raise their black men or they're raising children. So you're not going to look at black women because black men are more upfront and public with it. So you can hold the person more visible accountable to something. But you're not going to look at black women for reasons why certain things are failing in black culture. You're not going to look at the black home. Let's see how black women are raising children. Are they raising the children equal and balanced and fairly? Are they teaching bad things to the children? Right? Because that's the woman's role. The woman's role, they're the first teacher to that child. Right? But also that black man, he's the school principal. And that woman is supposed to teach based upon the curriculum that the principal set. But the problem is that black women are rebelling against that principal or black men, right? So she's teaching the black children every other thing besides what the black man instructed her to teach. End result, a fractured community where women compete with men instead of building with them. We both suffer from the same systemic barriers, right? So black women benefited from DEI and still blame black men for what Bill Clinton did with NAFTA. Bill Clinton did with NAFTA by outsourcing and shipping those manufacturing jobs, especially with the auto industry in Detroit. Black men had no control over that. Yet black men were still blamed for that. Black women benefited from DEI and still was able to find work in corporate America and live happy. But did they say, let's take this money that we're getting from corporate America and give it into our black men's hands so they can build a business within the community? No. Black women got those degrees. They got those jobs in corporate America, and they threw it into black men's face and saying that we're better than you. How the fuck is that race loyalty by black women? Structure breakdown. Black women's psychology and dating and respect towards patriarchal black men, right? Patriarchy versus matrilineal culture. This is very important because the black community is not patriarchal, but it's not matriarchal either. It's more matrilineal, right? And we're going to highlight, and you can use the Nigeria and the Aken people or Ghana for because Ghana and Aken, they're not patriarchal or matriarchal. They're more matrilineal, and we're going to break that down here today, right? Patriarchy versus matrilineal culture. The definition of patriarchy. If a man provides resources, he sets the rules in his household. Patriarchy equals provision, authority, and order. Traditionalist men expect obedience in exchange for protection and provision, right? Matrilineal counterculture in Black America. Culture trained women to look at players, pimps, and gangbangers as cultural leaders, the cool uncles of a matrilineal system, right? So, what does that mean? How did that happen? Well, if you watch the movie Dead Presidents, and you watch how all those black men who went to Vietnam to go fight in Vietnam, those were your traditional black men. But what was left over? Cuddy. Cuddy was the pimp. So what was left over to be the masculine archetype in black culture was the pimp, player, and max, right? So you know what? Let me do this right quick. So let me break down what a matrilineal society is. All right. Show you what a matrilineal society is. I should probably do this. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the chat, to the show. So let me break down what matrilineal is right quick before I do this. Let that load, right? So matrilineal counterculture in Black America. Culture trained to look at players, pimps, and gangbangers as the cultural leaders, the cool uncles of matrilineal system. Traditional men with resources and stability were culturally rebranded as lame, squares, or suckers. Notice the black men in our culture who are stable, who are providers, who are the best of the best black men, or should be the best of the best black men of black culture. They're labeled as lame, squares, and suckers. Meanwhile, the gangbanger, the pimps, and the players, They're the standard of what a black man should be in black culture, as defined by black women. If you notice. So, all right, so look at this. Look at this. So this is a matrilineal system, right? Strengths and weakness. Kingship was clear. You always knew the mother. Women and children were protected by their maternal clan. Men had a social function as warriors, providers, but not absolute rule. So that's a matrilineal system. That's similar to black culture, right? Weakness. Fathers equal strangers in the house. Their labor benefited the kids who legally weren't in their bloodline. Inheritance equals messy. The uncle cousins and nephews had more authority than the actual father of the household, right? So the uncle, cousins, and nephews are the players, gangbangers, and pimps in black culture, right? Divided loyalties equals the husband clan versus the wife's clan. Power leaks. If a woman married into another tribe, her wealth went with her. Fathers often felt disposed, weaker investments, right? So, right. Fathers often felt disposed. This means weaker investment in kids and weaker male authority at home. In practice, the uncle ran the show. The wife's family held the kids, and the father had limited legacy. So this is what you see going on in black culture as a matrilineal society, right? Example, in the Akan matrilineal kingdom, the king's throne often went to his sister's son, not his own son. That meant the king's personal children were sidelined and royal politics were full of net rivalries. Right, so that's what the downside of a matrilineal society is, right? In the Akan culture, the whole breakdown of this. Watch this. In a matrilineal society, right? In matrilineal societies, women weren't necessarily queens ruling over men, but they were gateways to inheritance and legitimacy. A rival clan or later European could gain power by marrying or impregnating the right woman. Women were the conduit of bloodlines, so external men who gained access to them could infiltrate their clan's resources and status. So that's black culture right there for you, and then more matrilineal thing. Right? So let's go back to the original. So that's what a matrilineal society is. Matrilineal counterculture in Black America. Culture trained women to look at players, pimps, and gangbangers as culture's leaders. The cool uncles of the matrilineal system. Traditional men with resources and stability were culture rebranded as lame, squares, or suckers. This inversion flips the natural hierarchy. Men who should be respected as alphas by any objective measure in another culture are disrespected in black culture. So this is the problem with black women being or black community being matrilineal, because black women tend to pick things or choose black men who are not suited for that position. And in matrilineal societies, the women validate the men in those societies or choose the man to lead them. The dating program, early programming, mothers, aunties, and culture of game train women. Player pimps equals attractive. Gangbangers, thugs equal dominant. Providers, traditional men equal lame, square, or sucker. Game mouthpiece pimp vernacular becomes the standard for attraction. Result, traditional black men may articulate successfully, resourcefully, but if they don't speak the pimp vernacular, they're dismissed. Women conflate charisma with leadership and dismiss actual leadership rooted in provision and stability, right? So that's the problem with black women in the matrilineal culture that we have. They don't look at, so now this is where a pimp is going to come in and say that a nigga that has resources or status is a sucker. But the pimp or player with the mouthpiece, he the dominant nigga. This is what they do. This is how black women have been trained to pick the wrong type of dudes, right? The double standard in forgiveness. Women who choose 3 or 4ism, dysfunctional men or disrespected traditional men, expect forgiveness and redemption. After years of disobedience, they return to the same traditional men they once mocked. For men, traditional men are still expected to provide, forgive, rescue women from their own choices. Meanwhile, those men were openly labeled as lame suckers for doing what patriarchal standards require. Remember, black men, when you court a black woman, after she said that's the type of nigga she actually wants, later on after 3 or 4 phase, remember, she was labeling you as a lame, square, a sucker. Accountability and responsibility. Where the blame lies, not with the pimps, players, and gangbangers. They never lied about who they were. Black women chose those men and gave them authority over their bodies. Psychological contradiction. Women disrespected patriarchal men at the start, chose men who embodied dysfunction, expect patriarchal men to provide salvation later. The hard truth, it's not the responsibility of traditional men to clean up the damage from those choices. Women must accept salvation from the same men they chose, not from the men they rejected. So black men, if you're a traditional dude, you're a provider or whatsoever, it's not your responsibility to save black men or black women from the type of niggas that they chose or type of lifestyle that they chose to do. I'm freeing you from that. It's not your responsibility. It's within your rights of your own autonomy to not date black women who live that lifestyle or chose that. Regardless of however a pimp, player, or macro is going to shame you or how black women shame you, it's not your responsibility to save them from the choices they made for themselves. Core thesis, psychological programming. In black culture, psychological programming in black culture leads women to disrespect their best option, provider traditional men, while elevating dysfunctional men as attractive. This inversion is rooted in matrilineal cultural norms, reinforced by a pimp player vernacular, and supported by mothers and aunties who socialize the daughters this way. A lot of black women, when you were dating and you were a single black mother and you had various different niggas running in and out the house, and those black daughters watched you treat the certain type of nigga, a pimp, player, Mac, with high respect and gave you access to your body, but you treat the provider or the traditional nigga with disrespect, they learned that from y'all. It's the same way how black men learn colorism from you. Your daughters learn to pick the wrong type of dudes from you and your behavior. The expectation that traditional men should later forgive and rescue these same women is both hypocritical and destructive. Accountability must rest on women. The men they chose are the men responsible for their outcome. Let me say that again. Accountability must rest on women. The men they chose are the men responsible for their outcome. In other words, black women, if you open up your box or your poems to a player, Mac, a Pookie, a Ray Ray, and a gangbanger or a thug, those men are the responsible for your salvation and your outcome in life. It is not the job of traditional men to come rescue you from that. It's your job to either save yourself or lay in the coffin or rely on those men to rescue you. Rely on those pimp niggas to rescue you. Rely on the player to rescue you. Rely on the gangbanger and the thug to rescue you. Rely on the Pookie and the Ray Ray to rescue you. Shit, rely on the white man to rescue you. Structural systemic policies weaken black patriarchy. Culturally, women transmitted colorism and anti-male values in the home. Psychologically, women are programmed to disrespect patriarchal men until after dysfunction, then expect rescue. You're not Super Mario, black men. You can't eat a mushroom and grow 50 meters tall and go beat Bowser. You ever notice that Princess Peach keep escaping? She keep getting kidnapped from the damn castle and somehow getting back to Bowser's clutches? At that point, Mario need to get him a new bitch, man. Psychological breakdown. Why black women call black men lames but praise white lames? Ho, 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 ho. The next chapter. The psychological breakdown. Why black women call black men lames but praise white lames. The setup. Programming in black culture. Black men with structure, resources, and discipline equals labeled as squares, lames, or suckers inside black culture. Pimps, players, thugs, gangbangers equals praise as alpha because of mouthpiece, bravado, and rebellion against order. This creates inverted hierarchy, where the men who should objectively be the most desirable, providers, builders, and patriarchs, are downplayed. Now, mind you, black women would jump out there and say, so whenever black women are dating outside their race, they'll say that the white man that they are in a relationship with, he protects her, he provides for her, he loves her to be natural, he respects her natural self, he allows her to rest in her femininity. But black men who are also the same protector, provider, and all those other good things, he, in addition to him being disrespected, he was called square, lame, and sucker inside black culture. But when she dates the same white man who's also supposed to be considered by black culture standards that black women set, lame, square, sucker, she doesn't brand him with that. She branded him as her savior from black men. So in other words, black men, if this was Super Mario, you're Bowser. And the white man is Super Mario. And Super Mario is saving the black woman from you, Bowser. Let that rest with your soul, your spirit, and your brain. Let that rest. This creates an inverted hierarchy where the men who should objectively be most desirable, providers, builders, patriarchs, and protectors, are downplayed. The double standard across racial lines. A black man who is structured, traditional, and disciplined equals dismissed as boring, lame, not exciting. A white man with those exact same traits equals praised as a gentleman, dependable, and a real man. I'm going to read this to y'all niggas again. There's only one viewer in here. But for the future viewers, I'm going to read this again. The double standard across racial lines. A black man who is structured, traditional, and disciplined equals dismissed as boring, lame, not exciting. A white man with those exact same traits equals praised as a gentleman, dependable, and a real man. The same behavioral traits are rebranded as attractive when attached to whiteness. That's black women's psychology for you. And they're doing it purposely. The strategic function of this double standard. Oh, yeah, we break it down. Phase 1, sacrificial cycle. Black women select thugs, players, men who are statistically more likely to be jailed, killed, or destabilized, reducing the pool of black male leadership. So that's getting black male patriarchy out the way, right? Public narrative, control. After destructive choices, the narrative becomes the only black men available were thugs, players, or lames. This erases the presence of traditional black men they actively rejected. Phase 3, justification for interracial dating. Now when dating white men, the excuse becomes, see, black men ain't stepping up, so we had to look elsewhere. Meanwhile, the white man being chosen is no different from the black men they call lame, except he benefits from the cultural perception that his lameness equals stability and respectability. Now, there's a phase 4 that I didn't put in here. The phase 4 is why black women project a standard of thug or pimp or player onto black men is simply because this. I believe that black women are operating under the authority of white men. And white men the racist white men of old want to destroy black men and remove that structure. Right? Black men are the structure of black culture. So now if you can remove black men of that structure in black culture, the black women and the children will be left up as what? What do they call treasure in amongst pirates? Booty. So now once black men are gone or dead and gone, and black women and the children are left, who's going to now be the structure for black women and children? State, communism, Marxism, socialism. But you got to get rid of the fighting black men that would defend their communities. So you got to program black women to A, not respect traditional black men, and B, to only praise and validate destructive black men so they can wipe themselves out. I should have put that in phase 4. The underlying psychology, destruction loop. Choosing destructive men ensures many black men self-destruct early. Thinning the herd of masculine leadership. Excuse creation. Failed relationship with thugs players equals pre-manufacturing justification to cross the color line. Value transfer. The same square qualities denied to black men are only celebrated when they come in a white package. Feeding into the narrative of white men is ice is colder. Shout out to the angry man. Psychological warfare on black men. The message is, if you want us, you must be either a dangerous thug who burns out or a white man with stability who benefits from cultural double standards. So this is what black women project in black culture. So it's deeper than fucking attraction or you approaching a black woman. I guarantee y'all, nobody's breaking this down like I'm breaking it down right here. Resulting, mindfuck for black men. You're told to abandon patriarchal discipline and adopt player thug traits to be seen as attractive, but that destroys you in the long run. If you remain a provider and structured, you're seen as lame if you're black, but praised if you're white. Either way, black women create a dynamic where black men lose. The player, the thug, you self-destruct. Stay traditional, you're rejected until she needs saving later. Be stable in a square, you're invisible unless you're white. That's the. So this is a lot deeper than can black men approach black women, and can black men attract black women, and can black women get into a relationship with black women, and black men need to vet? No. You're black men, your vetting skills can be high, but you can't beat the psychological warfare being played by black women. You can't beat that. No vetting can beat that. No vetting can change a black woman whose mindset is like this. This psychological manipulation loop I'm identifying is not just random dysfunction. It's cultural conditioning mechanism that both undermines black male leadership and provides black women with a built-in excuse for abandoning their own men. Structure breakdown. The psychology of traditional black men, women, and cultural conditioning. Layer 1. Charisma, charm, and confidence aren't exclusive to players, right? So that's the thing with charisma and confidence and charm. These things are not exclusive to players. Both traditional black men and thugs and gangbangers whatsoever, these are core traits that men can pick up and learn. They're not exclusive to one subset of men over the other, right? But traditional black men can and do exhibit the same qualities. Only difference in their charisma is rooted in leadership and family building. Core difference: player archetype charisma used for manipulation, multiple women, or non-monogamy leads to culture decay. I shouldn't have put multiple women in there, right? And I should have put manipulation in there because black women, the players are not actually manipulating black women. The players are actually being honest with black women. And a traditional nigga, you should be dating and being attracted to multiple women too, right? You're just supposed to pick the best woman out of the multiple women you attract and build a nuclear family with that one woman, right? Traditional archetype, charisma used for structure, nuclear family, and patriarchal order leads to cultural stability, right? Layer 2, accountability of traditional black men, right? So traditional black men must stop dating women who are disobedient, disrespectful, or rebellious. Too many men were fooled into thinking that those women deserve grace or long-term investment. This failure comes from the boomer generational mistakes. Boomers often lived as pimps, players, and players themselves. So you had a lot of black boomer men who are pimps. This is where that blaxploitation culture came from in Hollywood. So a lot of that pimp player stuff, that comes from the boomer generation. And if you notice, a lot of the Nation of Islam guys, or the pro-black dudes, they used to be ex-pimps. Malcolm X used to be an ex-pimp, right? So they overcorrected by teaching the next generation to treat all black women, women the same. That teaching blurred the line between ladies who should be courted and 304s who should only be treated as what they are. Result: disrespectful women were rewarded with the same treatment as respectable women, right? That's what the black boomer men taught black men to do. And no matter how you try to hold those boomer men accountable, they would not admit that this is their folly, that this was their greatest mistake. To black men of the millennial generation, the younger Gen X, and the Gen Z now dealing with bullshit today. The boomer betrayal, instead of teaching men to separate women into categories, traditional women versus rebellious women, boomer said all black women deserve the same treatment. This led to men rewarding 304s with commitment they didn't earn, men undervaluing actual ladies by not distinguishing them. Right? So this teaches black women in the environment that, okay, cool, black men are rewarding 304s with traditional commitment. So now guess what the ladies decided to do? Lower their standards to attract those same group of men with black men with resources. Millennials, Gen X, and Gen Z inherited this confusion and are still paying for the price. But black boomer men, it's very difficult to get them to admit that. Level 4, the psychological trap for black men. Black men were tricked into being consistent with all women instead of being consistent with themselves. Proper order should be consistency in principles, authority, and leadership, regardless of the woman. So in other words, if your leadership is traditional values, right, you should be a traditional guy no matter what woman comes before you. You should be a dominant nigger no matter what woman comes before you or in your presence. But this is the difference. The differentiation in treatment based on the woman's character. If she's a lady, she can be rewarded by getting courted, provision, and protection. If she's a 304, she gets low investment, no commitment, and no long-term grace. So that's the difference. You don't treat all the women the same. You treat the women based upon how they perform and who's the character and what's their character. Remember, I told you that you got to treat women based upon their performance and their character. Emphasis on performance. Level 5, the fallout. Many 304s pretended to be ladies because black men never learned how to vet properly. Single mothers and boomer men failed to pass down vetting skills. Result, traditional men treat 304s like wives. Real ladies get treated like everyone else. Cultural standards collapse because women no longer have an incentive to act like ladies. So now, if you have the good black women watching black men rewarding 304s, there's really no incentive to say, okay, let me step my game up to be a lady. And on top of that, well, that's another layer, right? So I was going to say something, but that's for another video, right? So remember that. Black women don't have an incentive to be the best for the best type of man because the best type of men are dating all the women the same or as equal or equally or treating them equally. The restoration path. Black men must relearn vetting, identify performance and traits that separate ladies from 304s. Stop rewarding rebellion. Don't give commitment to women who disrespect, disobey, or reject traditional structure. Reclaim consistency properly. Be consistent in masculine authority and standards, not in how women are rewarded. Pass down real standards to Gen Z and beyond so they don't repeat the boomers' mistakes. Which a lot of Gen Z and millennials repeated a lot of them. You're watching Gen Z do the same fuck shit that the boomer men did. A lot of traditional boomer men, they wifed up 304s. You're watching Gen Z wifing up 304s. Like, what's this nigga name? Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter, the mistake he made, a lot of black boomer men made that same mistake. Steve Harvey is an example. Steve Harvey is married to a trap bitch. Right? Steve Harvey divorced his good black woman to go marry a trap bitch. Key psychological insight. The confusion came from a cultural bait and switch. Instead of teaching men to judge women by their behavior, boomers taught men to judge themselves by whether they treated all women the same. That stripped men of discernment, leaving them vulnerable to manipulation. That's what you black boomer men did. I know y'all don't want to hold yourself accountable for teaching your sons that madness and the next generation of men that madness, but this is what you did. Let's see what's going on in the chat. How to do Antone. So I guess Demetrius Tony, whatever your name is, I guess you're a loser with no loser, right? You don't have a girlfriend and you're broke. This is how you're finding your time to go into my chat and made another account to come back in my chat to say something. So guess what I'm going to do? Layouts. Yes. General. Oh, I wish I know how to set this subscriber chat from StreamYard. Maybe I could do it like this. Wait 1 second. Right. Go live. Stream. All right, cool. We go here. So now if you want to talk to me, hold on. Let me find this first right quick. Customization. Subscriber chat only. So you got to subscribe to my channel for 20 minutes to be able to talk to me. All right, so subscriber chat only. All right, let's get back to StreamYard. So if this same nigga subscribe to my channel, we know what type of nigga time that nigga is. Because instead of him going to go make some money or go find a bitch, he over here fucking with me. The confusion came from the culture of bait and switch. Instead of teaching men to judge women by their behavior, boomers taught men to judge themselves by whether they treated all women the same. That stripped men of discernment, leaving them vulnerable to manipulation. The structure shows clearly. Traditional men aren't lacking game. Boomers corrupted the standard. Black men must restore discernment to rebuild patriarchy. Right? Discernment. Because you got to be able to know what woman is the right woman for your kingdom. Black men miscalculate women's patterns, thinking she'll treat them different. And black women's own dating habits and programming create a polluted environment where even sharp vetting skills feel like waste of time, right? So what do I mean by that? The male miscalculation. Many black men tell themselves, and a lot of black men can attest to this, she might have disrespected her last dude, but she won't be like that with me. So now that is based off of woman's attraction, right? So a dating coach or player Mac nigga would tell you that the reason why she disrespected the last dude is because she wasn't attracted to him, but she didn't really like him. But she might not be that same way for you. Here's where they don't tell you the full story. If she's been disrespectful to or disobedient with 5, 10, or more men, that's her pattern, not an accident. And this attraction can make her act obedient in the short term, 1 to 3 years. And 1 to 3 years is short term. Why I say that? But long term, her true self returns, right? Because within 1 to 3 years, who she really is can show herself to you. That's why I say 1 to 3 years to vet a woman is short term. Key point. Women reflect their own thinking and choices first, not the man. She has to choose to transform, not just perform. Right? So let me read that again. Women reflect their own thinking and choices first, not the man. She has to choose to transform, not just perform. So the whole concept of a woman is the reflection of a man, that's surface level. That's a short-term quick fix that player niggas or the niggas that say it's always a man's fault tell black men. It really doesn't fix the long-distance problem that black women don't like black men. It's what it is, right? Women reflect their own thinking and choices first, not the man. So a woman's going to think about, choose herself first before she becomes a reflection of the man, secondary. Which there's no problem with doing that, right? A man, you should think of yourself first like a woman should think of herself first. No problem with that. The problem with that now is that when she thinks of herself and she chooses to be disrespectful or disobedient to that man's leadership, that's where she should be held accountable. Because if she wasn't going to respect that dude, she should have just left that man alone. Right? The problem of pretending. Women can mask their real behavior for months or even years. A man can waste 3 years only to find out she was pretending. That's not a vetting skill failure. It's a sign of cultural decay in the woman's pool. If the majority of women are inauthentic, vetting becomes a time sink rather than a solution. So you're just wasting your time. If you got to vet properly and have a vetting skill, which you should have a vetting skill, and most of the women that you're vetting, they're either problematic or they were lying about who they were, because you have a high vetting skill, you're able to tell that now, right? Then that means it's not a problem with the men. There's a problem with the dating pool of women to pick from that we will not address. Black men as a whole will not address that problem. The statistical dilemma. If 70% of women were generally good and 30% were bad, vetting wouldn't take as long. You know why? Because the majority of Black women would be either traditional women or good women. And there will only be a small percentage of bad women bad women that would be like 3 or 4s of disrespectful women to pick from. So you wouldn't have to vet so long to find a good woman. But if the majority are bad or programmed against traditional men, then the vetting process is stacked against men from the start. Conclusion. Bottleneck isn't just men's vetting skill, it's the quality of women available to vet. And when I say quality woman, I'm talking about quality woman by traditional standards, not by player Mac pimp standards. All right, player Mac and pimp standards, they love hoes, so they're gonna love the whole 304 environment. But if the 304 environment is not a reflection or up to the traditional standard, then for traditional standard men, there's not a lot of good women to vet from, to even get the privilege of a man vetting or courting them. Women's dating pattern as a filter. Black women really choose traditional men first. They label them as lame, squares, or suckers. Instead, they date the men who require no standards of leadership. This creates two distortions. It hides whether Black men are actually bad at vetting, because the majority of women avoid traditional men anyway. It rewards low-tier men, Pookie, Stugs, Max, who don't require vetting, further polluting the dating pool. Right? So we read that again. If Black women are not choosing traditional men first, meaning when you approach that chick or when you date that chick, and now she dismisses you or rejects you because you're lame or square, then she doesn't. Guess what? She didn't qualify to be vetted by you in the first place. How can you vet a woman or court a woman that doesn't value your vetting skills or values your courtship? They're not gonna want to go on a date with you for you to vet them, have the chance to vet them properly, because they don't value you to go on a date with you. This creates two distortions. It hides whether Black men are actually bad at vetting, because the majority of women avoid traditional men anyway, at least at first. It rewards low-tier men, Pookie, Stugs, and Max, who don't require vetting, further polluting the dating pool, right? The autonomy factor. Men can't just select women and impose change. Women have full autonomy in their choices, who they date, how they act, whether they mask or reveal their true character. That means men can't be blamed fully for women's poor long-term outcomes, because men don't control women's initial or consistent behavior. So it's not always the man's fault. For it to be always the man's fault, he has to have all these things. He has to be able to control all these things of women for it to always be man's fault. But like I said, women have full autonomy of their choices, who they date, how they act, whether they mask or reveal their true character. That means men can't be blamed fully for women's poor long-term outcomes, because men don't control women's initial or consistent behavior. I don't know how you can argue, somebody can argue with that logic and say otherwise. The final takeaway. Black men do need vetting skills, yes. They sharpen discernment, build authority, and protect resources. But when men are consistently sees most women pretending, that exposes a deeper cultural problem. It's not just a vetting issue. It's evidence that the women's side of the dating pool is toxic, dishonest, and misaligned with traditional standards. Therefore, primary accountability shifts to women, They must choose honesty and alignment, and alignment they must choose honesty and alignment, not manipulation and rebellion, right? This frames it as men must vet, but if vetting consistently fails because women the root problem lies in the woman's psychology and the cultural programming them. Right? Structure breakdown, vetting value, and black male visibility. Traditional black men and vetting. Defining definition of vetting. A man's ability to evaluate, screen, and choose women based on character, values, and long-term alignment. Requires accountability, discipline, and leadership. Impact of strong vetting. Protects men from dysfunctional women. Reinforces healthy relationship structures. Models accountability, which should inspire women to elevate themselves, right? Because now, as niggas like to say, the women are the reflection of the men in that society. So if men are holding themselves accountable, the women should too, right? Wrong. Wrong. The problem of visibility and value. Black women's perception of traditional men, often labeled as lames or squares. Their leadership and vetting skills are not respected or admired. Result, even if men master vetting, they're overlooked in the dating pool. Their leadership doesn't redirect women's behavior because women don't acknowledge their value. Your vetting skills mean shit if the women you're dating do not value you in the first place or respect you in the first place. So they're not going to value your accountability to hold themselves accountable, to shift their position or align themselves to your standards. The passport bro example. Why passport bros exist? Men seeking women who respect tradition and male leadership, exercising their right to expand their dating pool globally. Black women's reaction, public shaming of these men, accusations, pedophiles, predators, weak. Can't handle strong black women. That's how they were being shamed, right? Underlying issue. Instead of fixing themselves to compete for these men, they attacked the men. Proof that the men were not valued until they became visible losses. So only time the lames and squares became valuable is when black women had no more access to them. It can benefit them in the long run. The core paradox. Even with perfect vetting, traditional men will still be ignored because cultural value system does not reward or respect them. Why? Dysfunctional men, pookies, thugs, players are given cultural attention and validation. Traditional men only become noticeable when they leave or expand options, not when they stand firm at home, right? But I'm gonna break down. Even when you do that and you create a scarcity of yourself, black women don't value that. And I think I told you a little bit of the reason why. For black men, many will stop investing in women who do not respect their leadership. Expansion of dating options will continue. For black women, loss of access to traditional men. Reinforcement of dysfunctional dating cycles. For the culture, the cycle of blaming men, thugs, squares, absent fathers, while bypassing the men of value continues. Leads to further breakdown of trust, unity, and traditional structure. So once that traditional structure is gone, I don't know what's going to happen to black culture. Right? And black men shouldn't be investing in black women that do not respect their leadership, or any woman for that matter. And the consequences of that is going to be drastic for black women. The framework shows psychological trap. Even when black men improve themselves, vetting, leadership, accountability, the cultural rejection of lame squares means their value isn't acknowledged until those men remove themselves from the pool and force recognition. But here's where that got taken or smacked out of the chessboard, right? The passport bros and cultural response. Passport bros equal black men seeking women outside the U.S., often for traditional values. Response from black culture. Many women shamed them, right? Shockingly, many black men joined in the fucking shaming, especially players, pimps, and max. Hypocrisy in player culture. This is what's the most hypocritical thing that I saw a lot of the players and max doing on the internet. Players, pimps, and max usually preach Don't dirty Mac. Don't block another man's game. Don't shame another man's choices. Yet these same men dirty Mac passport bros, undermining their dating choices, publicly shaming them. Contradiction. They broke their own street code of respecting another man's lane. That's what the players did here on the YouTube. All the players, Macs, and pimp niggas that was here on YouTube, dirty Mac the passport bros, violating the codes to their own shit. And black men did that. The damage done to the brotherhood by dirty Mac and black men disrespected their own brethren, undermined the autonomy of other black men, sent a message: your freedom of choice as a man doesn't matter if it offends our culture. I'm going to say that again. Dirty Mac and black men, you disrespected your own brethren, you undermined the autonomy of other black men, sent a message: your freedom of choice as a man doesn't matter if it offends our culture. This is what Shannon Sharder did to what's his name? I forgot the nigga name. Right, I have ADHD, so his name just slipped my brain. Right, this is what a lot of men like Shannon Sharder does to the lames or the square or the so-called lames and squares of black culture. Right, the lames and squares offends them. This mirrors slavery. Black autonomy stripped by white supremacy. Now black men stripping each other of others' autonomy. So what y'all doing? Howard teaches black women rebellion. When black men attack other black men for their choices, black women see the division. Learn that black men don't respect each other's leadership or autonomy. Result: black women feel emboldened to rebel against all black men, especially traditional ones. Message to black women: if black men don't respect each other, why should we respect them? Hope you are paying attention. The core principle: brotherhood requires respecting a man's autonomy and how he leads. His life includes who he dates. When black men dirty Mac, they break solidarity, undermine collective male authority, teach women to disrespect the very structure men are trying to build. So that's what you play and Mac niggas are doing. The larger consequence: black men lose cultural authority, equals to black women don't submit. Black women rebel, which equals traditional men are pushed further away. Brotherhood fractures, no united front against dysfunction. Cycle repeats. Black men keep undercutting each other instead of building collective respect, which happens often here in YouTube spaces amongst black men. I don't know. It is what it is. When black men strip each other's autonomy by dirty macking, they're repeating the same system that stripped autonomy from them in slavery, and they hand women the blueprint to rebel against masculine authority. Structure breakdown: hypocrisy in player, Mac, and pimp culture. The standard they preach, player, Mac, and pimp culture, says, don't let society dictate your choices. Follow your own rules, be autonomous. Weak men obey social pressure, strong men do what they want. This is their standard, right? The contradiction: the same group shames black men in these cases. Marrying a 3 or 4 porn star, society criticizes the man, but the pimps, players, and Mac often defend him, citing autonomy. Passport bros dating women overseas, they shame him for not following black societal norms, even though it's also an autonomous decision. So player Mac niggas, you can't say you want your autonomy to be respected, but then dirty Mac and disrespect another brother or black man's autonomy to date women outside of the culture. That's what you get, Demetrius. You can't speak in my motherfucking chat. Good. Cultural consequences: black men are taught inconsistency in brotherhood. Support your own autonomy when convenient. Attack your brother's autonomy when inconvenient. This teaches black women to exploit division among men. Traditional men are delegitimized. Male solidarity is fractured, right? But this is what the players do, right? Hypocrisy undermines authority and brotherhood. The same group that preaches freedom and non-conformity selectively enforces conformity when it affects their preferred narrative. This perpetuates a cycle where traditional men lose credibility, passport bros get attacked, and women learn to navigate a divided male culture. Comprehensive psychological map. Black male autonomy, brotherhood, matrilineal influence, and cultural dynamics. Matrilineal influence in Black culture. Definition: matrilineal doesn't equal matriarchal. Women do not control politics and warfare, but they shape culture, influence masculinity, and define leadership hierarchies. So this is what I was talking about earlier, right? Mechanism in Black culture. Women, mothers, grandmothers, aunties define who is the alpha or desirable. Lower-tier men, player pimps, gangbangers, thugs, max, are elevated in status by women. Traditional Black men who provide stability, resources, and long-term leadership are labeled as squares, lames, or suckers. Structural parallel. Like in matrilineal societies, the father, traditional Black man, provides resources but is limited in authority. Authority rests with the uncle figure, culturally the pimp, player, gangbanger who serves as the intermediary between women and the men providing resources. I told you, Black culture in America and maybe the Caribbean are matrilineal. Autonomy and vetting in traditional Black men. Vetting defined, evaluating women for character alignment with traditional values and long-term stability. Suitability. Function, protects the man and family structure, reinforces leadership and accountability. Challenge. Black women often do not respect traditional men up front, labeling them as lames or square. Effect. Even perfect vetting may not shift behavior because women do not value the man's authority. The Black Manosphere Effect. Shout out to the Angry Man, O'Shea Duke, and Obsidian, and Mr. Fantastic, and all those brothers in the Manosphere, and Tommy Sotomayor, right? Men taught to value themselves, hold themselves accountable, as well as hold women accountable. Reaction from Black women: resistance, shaming, refusal to align behavior. Insight: scarcity only motivates behavioral change if the woman respects the man. So remember the passport bros? Well, guess what? Even if those Black men who were considered to be lames of the culture, or square of the culture, were to leave and go to other countries to find better women, Black women do not value them enough to change their behavior to earn those men back. So even if Black men were making yourself scarce, Black women don't respect you or value you in any way. So they're not going to give a fuck what you do. So this is why if I tell you to vet for yourself, I'm telling you to protect your own best interest when you're vetting. Scarcity requires respect. Principle: scarcity triggers perceived loss only when the object is valued. Black women and traditional men. Lack of respect prevents scarcity from motivating behavioral change. Example: losing a championship belt motivates effort only if it is valued. Otherwise, no response occurs. Right? So in other words, if I'm fighting another champion fighter and I lose my belt to that person, if I value that belt in that position, I'm going to fight and train hard to get that belt back for next year. But if I don't value that, I'm not going to fight or train to go get it. Passport bros and the unspoken Negro contract. Traditional men seeking women overseas align with traditional values. Face cultural pushback. Black women shame them. Players Max pimp culture shames them, Dirty Mac. Unspoken Negro contract. Black men are expected to date Black women, regardless of alignment with traditional standards. So that's part of the unspoken Negro contract, right? Player Max pimp hypocrisy. Preach standard, defend autonomy, resist societal pressure. Selective enforcement. Autonomy defended when it suits narrative, marrying a 3 or 4 porn star. Autonomy attack when it challenges Black women's dating choices. Example: passport bros. Effect: inconsistency. Erodes male solidarity, enables rebellion, and reinforces misaligned hierarchy. This is what the player Max are doing, and they're doing that on purpose. So I don't think I need to explain this. Okay, so women's behavior and cultural conditioning. Mothers and matrilineal structures teach women to disrespect traditional men. Early exposure to players, max, and thugs normalize rebellion and misaligned attraction. Women often choose low-tier men first, then complain about lack of stability or leadership. The vicious cycle. Traditional Black men vet carefully, right? Undervalued. Player pimp, Mat culture attacks brothers, fractures brotherhood. Women observe disunity, rebel, and reject traditional men. Traditional men remove themselves to seek women elsewhere. Scarcity occurs. Scarcity fails to motivate women because they do not respect traditional men. Male authority eroded. Women continue cycles of rebellion. So all of this is connected. Vetting skills versus dating patterns. Black men's vetting remains critical, but effectiveness depends on women's respect. Many Black women choose low-tier men, making vetting alone insufficient. Black men cannot force control over autonomy. Women choose who they date. So you cannot argue that logic. You can't. Unless you're not going to force women to date traditional men. And that's going to make the traditional men look predatory or look like they're trying to force women to like them. Actions align with words. The misinterpretation trap. Saying so. This is the biggest thing, right? Saying don't pay attention to what women say. What she says. Watch what she does is a short-term fix. Reality: Black women's words and actions align. Initial attraction can mask long-term behavior, right? Underlying issue: Black women often do not value traditional men enough to adjust behavior, creating a long-term structural problem. So even if you say, don't pay attention to what she says, watch what she does, that's a short-term fix. Because a lot of Black women have, I don't know if you've been paying attention, they are doing what they say they're going to do. And you cannot bank that on, you cannot bank. And even if what a woman says aligns with what she does in the beginning, well, she's initially attracted to you. What if she loses attraction for you after that? What if she no longer likes you, then respects you, or even loves you? And all that can break in 1 year to 2 years to 3 years. And that's not the fault of Black men. The only thing Black men can do in that situation is remove himself. But the problem is still going to remain with Black women's psychology. Integrated matrilineal perspective. Women as cultural arbiters define what counts as alpha in Black culture. Traditional men provide resources but have limited authority like fathers in matrilineal societies. Low-tier men elevated by women to roles of cultural authority, the uncle figure. Result: traditional men's stability and leadership undervalued. Women's choices are influenced by matrilineal programming. Right? This is why I said in the last video, matrilineal societies is a very bad thing for Black people. That's why white men conquered everything, because most of the indigenous tribes and African tribes, I don't want to say most, but there were quite a bit of them that were matrilineal. This is going to be a great analogy breakdown right here. So when a nigga says, focus on yourself, not the woman, that's a surface level argument. Reality: a man must focus on himself, identity, consistency, individuality, and swag, and also on the woman, because she is part of his system and vision. In other words, you have to focus on a woman too, as well as focusing on yourself, because she's in your house, she's part of your system and vision. Remember, your sperm hits the woman's egg, and she can either give birth to a man or male baby or female baby, and that's determined by your sperm, the male. So you can curate both male and female. So the women are part of you, the man. She part of her was forged in the womb, but the spark that gave her life came from you, the man. So she's part of your system. She's part of who you are, your DNA, right? The farmer analogy: a farmer focuses on himself, strength, skill, and knowledge, and also his garden and lifestyle. Gardening crops yield resources for subsistence or trade. Chickens, cows, goats produce food, income, or labor. Neglecting the garden and livestock allows external forces, wolves, foxes, vermin, parasites, to steal or destroy resources. The woman as the garden. The woman is analogous to the garden and livestock, part of the man's environment and vision. Her role is to align with his patriarchal vision. carry and raise children in alignment with the father's legacy, maintain loyalty, and perform duties that support the household and lineage. If she fails to perform, the man must either correct or remove her influence, just as the farmer would guard against predators or destroy the diseased crops. Right? So the man is the gardener, the woman is part of the garden. So he has to pay attention to what the woman is doing in the garden and how she's cultivating in the garden. And now if the woman is now being disobedient to the gardener or allowing parasites to become in the garden, he has to now correct the woman or dismiss her influence from his garden. So to say to focus on yourself but not the woman, that's bullshit and it's surface. Because when you talk about leadership or being a king of a castle or president of a nation, you have to focus on focus on yourself first and focus on your people. You have to attend or be attentive to the people you're leading. External interference. When other men tell traditional men he is insecure for controlling or guarding his woman, it's like telling the farmer to let those wolves eat his chickens or destroy his crops. This is analogous to a player, thug, or outsider trying to manipulate or destroy the man's household or influence. Principle: men must protect and cultivate their environment while maintaining internal consistency. Ignoring women in the household or dating ecosystem leads to loss of resources, authority, and legacy, just as ignoring the farm leads to destruction and death. So I don't have to go through that again. Went through this already. Right, so men and farmers are part of the gardens. Okay, cool. So I already went through this. Now, this is the psychological breakdown of Black women and their psychology and how they've become the downfall of Black culture. You understand? And this is their disobedience to Black culture. Now, what's my consequence for Black women? I think for the next 200 years, Black women should not have access to traditional Black men. Black women should have access to the gangbanger, the thug, the pookie, the ray ray. Those are the only group of men that Black women should have access to. They should be denied access to the traditional Black men that they were calling lames and squares and whatsoever. Anyway, this was Kiss Shorty Gaming Nation. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. I'm out.